Okay, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Give me 2 seconds here. There we go. Okay, so good morning. Glad to see you all this morning. I believe that we have some new people this morning, so I want to start with having you folks please introduce yourselves. Let's see who we've got this morning.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to see when she's getting on. So I'm messaging Gabby right now so she can introduce herself.
Okay. I'm sorry, well, Ashley, what was that?
I'm seeing if Gabby is on so she can introduce herself from Coconino.
Okay. Eric Hall. We know you, Eric, don't we?
Yes, sir. It's been a couple of weeks. Good morning, everyone. My name's Eric Hall. My wife is also here on the meeting, Melissa Hall. She's the program manager for the University of Arizona for is it NTIA?
Yeah.
Grant. I was just invited just to sit in as I guess I would just say a very conscientious technology person. Many years in the Air Force, Air National Guard, 8 years in the Navy prior to coming over to Caterpillar, where I'm a mining technology specialist for Caterpillar, dealing with autonomy and a lot of wireless Internet of Things technologies.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. So
Yes,
while
sir.
we're talking about halls, Melissa, I know you've been here before, but we haven't seen you for a while. Do you want to introduce yourself again, please?
Hi, Steve. Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Hall, and like Eric said, I am the program manager for the NTIA grant through University of Arizona, which is why I haven't been here in a few weeks. It's been reporting month, so things have been busy and conflicting, but happy to be here and make all the connections.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here this morning. And Keith Dennis.
Good morning. My name is Keith Dennis. This is David Miller. We're from Southeastern Arizona Governments Organization. It is the Council of Governments for the four counties.
Keith, we see you talking, but I'm not hearing anything.
Uh-oh.
Well,
He's fine. We can hear him.
Cochise, Graham, Greenlee, and Santa Cruz counties is our service area. We're kind of like the PAG or the MAG of Southeast Arizona. And I was given the invite by Miss Heather Floyd from Valley Telecom, if that name sounds familiar.
We've heard of her.
Good. She suggested that we participate, and so our interest is in onboarding people and completing the ACP participation in the ACP program that we're doing down here, as well as bringing more dollars for broadband infrastructure development in our region.
Great. Well, at some other time, Keith, we'd like to get more of a detailed briefing from you about what you're doing. In the meantime, glad you could join us today. Anybody else that we have? TJ Mitchell.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Chief of Staff for Maricopa County Supervisor Bill Gates, and Supervisor Gates has taken an interest in broadband, especially in Maricopa County. So thanks for having me here, and just here to listen and see if there's any way we can help.
Sounds great. Thanks, TJ. Welcome. Anybody else that's new that I missed? Okay. Well, let's jump in and get started. I see we have several people from the broadband office this morning. Karen, glad to see you. Perla, glad to see you too. So you guys want to kick off with an update on what's happening? Lots of happening with the broadband office and everything. So can you kind of bring us up to date again?
Yeah. Sorry, Karen, I'll step
Right
in.
ahead, Perla. It's all yours.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I keep cutting in and out, but I'm gonna do my best here too. And my sound keeps coming in and out too, so that was great. But the broadband
Maybe
office,
you need good broadband.
I do. The initial proposal volume 1 is coming close to the end date here, where it's going to close for public comment, and we're going to be opening for our initial proposal volume 2. We're currently working on the feedback portion of it and making a lot of edits to our document, which is really great. Aside from that, we also have our new digital equity manager coming on board with us, and I'm really, really excited to work with her. And
Can you tell us who that is, or not yet?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say who that is, actually. But I am really excited to work with her.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I don't want to give out information if I'm not supposed to. So
Sure.
but I am really excited for that. And let's see, lost my train of thought there. We have the working groups. No, you're good, Steve. We have the working groups starting on October 30th. And for those that signed up, there's been an email sent on which working group is meeting on which days and at what time. And if you'd like further information on that, please let me know. Maybe you signed up and you forgot, and I can go ahead and get you on board with that. But Steve has my email, and it's also been shared before on some of the agendas. So please let me know, and we can get you on board with the working groups.
Perla, can people still join those groups, or is it closed now?
It is closed. We closed it on October 19th to sign up for the working groups and to schedule a time, but there are a lot of people on there that somebody from your organization possibly signed up. And I've been getting a few emails of people tag teaming it where they say, hey, I can't make it, but this person from my office can make it. Can they join? So it's been really great to be able to collaborate with people in that sense. Nicole also, I did want to add in there that Nicole has a initial proposal workshop happening on one for the tribes, and then that's happening today at 10 a.m. and then another one at 3 p.m. and that one's just what to look out for in the initial proposal, and so just for how you should provide feedback, and it's going to be a really great session. Yeah, that's all the updates I could think of on the spot, but if Karen or Crystal want to add anything else.
Before we go to Karen, Perla, and maybe we don't have the time to do it today, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but you guys have been having some sessions with providers, and it would be interesting to get your thoughts about what the concerns are, what the issues are, and so forth. Is that something you can talk about today, or perhaps at a future meeting?
Perhaps at a future meeting.
Okay. That makes sense. I should have given you a heads up, so.
Paula, real quick, just what day is the initial proposal volume 2 being released?
The volume 2 will be released on November 3rd.
Perfect, thank you.
It'll be on our ACA website.
Perfect, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Perla. Karen, you have anything you want to add?
I think Perla did a great job.
Okay. Well, I know you guys are busy and lots of stuff happening. Thank you all for all the great work you've been doing. So I don't think anybody else from the office is here today, and Nicole, it doesn't look like she's here today. So anyway, thank you guys, Perla and Karen, for being here today. So, excuse me, as Perla mentioned, and it is in the email that I sent out, and if you're seeing my screen, it's also on the screen. The initial proposals, 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock for tribes and 3 o'clock for others. And so I encourage you to make sure you attend those sessions. I think they're very important. Okay, let's move on. Anybody else? Mylan, can you hang on for the meeting, or are you gonna bug out on us?
Oh, I'm good until 9 o'clock. So my next
Okay.
meeting.
Well, why don't we just do you right now then? so that we don't miss you.
Okay. The biggest update I have is the FCC is going to allow Wi-Fi on school buses starting this year. All of the rules haven't come
Excuse me,
out.
Mylan, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, Mylan, I'm the state E-rate director for schools in Arizona. So, and I also manage the broadband special construction for all the schools and libraries in the state. Also manage the Final Mile project in conjunction with the Arizona Rural Schools Association. So I wear 3 different hats. They're 3 very different jobs, but I'm out of the Department of Education. So first off, with E-rate, the big change that's coming is that we're going to be allowed to provide Wi-Fi on school buses utilizing E-rate funds. They're still working on the actual rules around it and the submissions, but that's a big change from the past, and that's probably the only change for this year. We're still working on getting cybersecurity E-rate eligible, but hopefully that'll come in the coming years. For broadband special construction, we have $5 million in state match special construction funds. So any schools and libraries that still are lacking fiber, we can provide funding for them using E-rate funds and state match funds. So if they're an 80% school or library, we can build fiber to them. It won't cost them anything. And we have right at probably $140 million worth of construction money available with our $5 million from the state. So it's a really good investment on the state. Before we put any money into metro schools, I want to use that money in rural areas to make sure every single rural school and library has a fiber connection. So I'm stressing that real hard this year. And then on our Final Mile projects, all of them are complete except Grand Canyon School District area within the park. And the Park Service is slowing that one down, but we're still pushing that to get high-speed internet to those homes within the Grand Canyon Park. And I think that's about it for me.
Mylan, can you just provide a little more background about the Final Mile project?
Final Mile project, we started up during COVID. We had many schools in rural, well, many areas in rural Arizona that had no internet access. So we had school buses delivering packets to areas and students, you know, for teaching. And, you know, historically, Arizona wants students in a seat with a teacher in front to give classes. Well, we were thrown a loop. So it really impacted the ability of our students to learn, and disproportionately our rural students were severely impacted since many of them had no internet. So what we did was, working with the Arizona Rural Schools Association and the Department of Education provided the funding, we built, we took the places where we had built fiber into those rural communities to light up the school district. We took an additional pair of fiber, we lit it up and put up some wireless antennas and broadcast wireless signals into those communities so that the students could have high-speed internet, 100 meg over 25 for $10 a month for educational internet. And on top of that, we allowed those vendors to provide commercial internet at anywhere from $25 to $100 a month for, you know, for regular internet access. So they could watch Netflix and have their standard internet access even in those rural areas where they've never had internet before. So we have 14 communities that we've lit up. Probably the best one was the Cibique area on the White Mountain Apache tribe. That one there, you know, the school was paying the internet bill for those students at about $50,000 a month. So they had HughesNet. We replaced all that HughesNet for $250,000. We built a wireless network there. And now all of those students, plus the rest of the community, has high-speed internet from Triad. I think Rory's still on the call, but Rory's built that network out. And that whole community has wireless internet access now, and which they never had before. They have, and now they can do a Zoom call. But with the HughesNet, they couldn't do that because of a geosynchronous satellite's 300 millisecond delay. You can't do a telephone call or a conference call. So today we have lots and lots of students and communities in rural areas that have access to high-speed internet. It's economically, people can work from home. Learning wise, we have students that can work from home. Some school districts have gone to allowing students with straight A's to take off on Fridays and attend class from home, which is a huge benefit. It helps morale, it helps attendance, allowing them to attend school from home if they have straight A's. So it's been we've had some unknown or unforeseen advantages to having this rural access in those areas. So it's been a huge benefit, and it's Arizona Rural Schools Association and the Department of Ed are to thank. Department of Ed provided the funding. Rural Schools Association decided to take the plunge and tackle the problem. So I appreciate both of those organizations.
So Mylan, what do you see for a future for Final Mile? Are we looking at expanding it more, or and we need more funding, or what's your thoughts about that?
Well, working with the Commerce Authority and with the $900 million worth of funding that we have to bring services to all the rural areas of Arizona, I'm hoping that there's no need for the Final Mile program to continue. I'm hoping over the next 3 to 5 years, we provide services to all those rural areas with fiber or fiber with a wireless extension into all those areas with that $900 million that we have in our pocket right now. So I'm hopeful that there's no need for that project to continue. If it needs to continue, then I'll go shopping for more money.
Okay. One second, give me a second here. Okay. All right, so Rory, do you want to add anything to what Mylan's already said?
No, I think we've all the projects are built up. There's users on all these little towns, and they're still expanding. We're literally putting people up almost every day. I think we had guys out in Sonoyta last night till 8 or 9 o'clock last night. So no, it's all good.
You want to just tell people who you are, Rory?
So I'm with Triad Wireless. We're a wireless internet service provider in Arizona. We worked with Final Mile and built out, I think, 8 towns is what if I remember right. We're getting ready to expand them, and I'm sorry, expand in terms of the number of users that are attached. Basically, Final Mile helped cover the capital expenditures for companies like ours to go into areas because the capital expenditure made the return on investment too high to go into remote areas. So by providing that, we could turn them into a profitable entity and provide low cost internet to the people that couldn't get that. So that's kind of where it's at. We're actually, and again, and I can kind of mention this unless Derek's on here, but the next project we're working with is ASU's project where and I believe the funding was provided by the county and some federal through a federal grant. We're going to be hooking up thousands of kids for free internet around Maricopa County. That project actually starts tomorrow. The kickoff barbecue to get everybody to sign up for that. I think the first location is about 280 users. I think the towers and everything are all built, so they'll start on that, and that's in the Isaac School District is primarily where the focus is to begin with, because that's one of the areas that needs the most help. So that's pretty much it.
Well, all I got to say is you guys do awesome work. Mylan, you have been for years, and thank you so much for all the work that you've done in helping with bringing millions of dollars in E-rate funds, as well as the Final Mile project and so forth. So thank you for all that work.
You know, Steve, I absolutely love what I do. And I love the people that I get to work with. It's just, I couldn't enjoy what I do anymore.
Cool. I don't think Karina is on the call today. I thought she was going to join us today. Is there anything else, Mylon, that you want to talk about in terms of Department of Ed? I know there's been some changes that they now have the Office of Educational Technology, I believe.
Yeah, you know, Steve, I don't participate in a lot of stuff within the Department of Education.
Okay.
I kind of do my stuff, and it keeps me busy, so I don't know a lot about it. Sorry.
Okay. Well, hopefully, Karina, I know she had been out for a while with some surgery, and so hopefully
she's back as of yesterday, but I'm sure she's really busy trying to get caught up on everything. So
sure,
I'll let her know that we missed her today.
Yep. Okie doke. Let's move on. I know we jumped around a little bit with our updates, but I didn't want to end the meeting without getting an update from Mylan, since we don't get to see him very often and so much going on. So with that, let's go back and get to our to our resource highlight, as we do every week, and wanted to introduce. Hopefully, I'll get it right again. Tamara, right? Tamara.
Yes, that is Tamara. No, you were right the first time. You have
I've
to
gotten it
trust
wrong
yourself.
several times, so I'm glad I got it.
No, you're absolutely right.
So she's going to give us kind of an update on who Resound Networks is. She is the state broadband coordinator for that company, and so we want to give her an opportunity to share.
Thank you. Ready to go?
Now, you have a present. You do have a presentation.
I do.
So I'm going to stop.
I do. Okay, so let me share my screen real quick, and while I'm doing that, I will tell you who I am. My name is Tamara Rosenberg, and bless you, Steve, for
Before we move on. So I apologize, Crystal. I see that you're on with the broadband office. Is there anything else that you want to add before we move on?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Didn't mean to put you on the
All
spot
right.
there.
All right, let me from the beginning. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Tamara Rosenberg. First of all, I want to thank you, Steve, for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's a little bit of a baptism by fire because I've been with Resound for about a month and a half, and this is my first presentation on behalf of Resound. So everyone be kind, but I welcome any, constructive criticism. So I will thank you for that in advance. I am also not a technology expert. There are some things in here that I'm going to talk about technology wise. It's very high level. I can already tell you that someone like Corey is going to jump in, Rory, and say, hey, how are you doing X? And I won't have the answer to that, but I can absolutely find that out and share that out either through Steve or to the team later on. And finally, I wanted to give a shout out to Heather Floyd, who is not here. She is incredibly inclusive. She's also the person who brought me into these meetings. So I heard Keith say earlier that she had said he should be here. So Heather is doing good work in the background there.
Heather has been a regular participant with us and has just become a new sponsor for us.
I'm here to support you. I'm here today.
Oh, she is.
You are there. I can see you. Hi, Heather. Thank you. All right. So let me just dive right in and tell you a little bit about Resound Networks. Let's go to the next slide. So Resound is exclusively a rural company. We only deal in rural communities. We're about 8 years old. And one of the reasons we received that $303 million in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund reverse auction. And part of that is because of our expertise in rural communities and our commitment of up to 500 million other dollars on that. So we have a really big commitment to building out these networks across the 7 states that we're in. And we have our RDOF was specifically built around fixed wireless and fiber. So it is definitely a little different than a lot of the other RDOF winners, because most of them were focused on either fiber or other technologies that the FCC considered more standard. And we had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that, because we had to prove that our systems worked the way we said they worked. We also support and participate in all federal and local connectivity programs. And in saying that, I wanted to throw out that if there are any state connectivity programs that we should be aware of and that we can participate in, I invite anyone who has that information to reach out to me and let me know, because we'd be a happy participant. So moving right along. So I was going through some of the things on the site because I am very new to this, and I wanted to really tie back what it is that we're doing that supports the Digital Access Task Force. And, you know, the number one thing, of course, is delivering affordable broadband through our support from
series of
the...
articles
I'm sorry?
on
No, I got to.
fixed wireless projects.
Sorry.
So
your story sounds
please
like
mute.
it could be a good.
Craig.
It's all right. So we
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now.
Okay, I'll wait a second.
If I can find him here. I know he's on this list. There he is. Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem. So with the support of the FCC, we are under our RDOF funds, we are building affordable broadband networks throughout the RDOF area that we were awarded. And we also have a partnership with Communities Unlimited, and that contract with them allows us to, when we go into a community, we can also offer things like, you know, digital training for folks that may not be savvy. We can work with them if there's a need for technology, that we can deliver technology to those communities. So that's our partner for delivering on those kinds of projects. And then finally, we just recently contracted with the Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprenticeship Program, meaning that we will be working with local universities and trade schools, even high schools potentially, to build up the workforce. Because as we all know on this call, it is very hard to find qualified people to work on these projects because there's so many going on simultaneously. So we want to contribute to the local economies and build that workforce locally, that we can then either, I gave an example the other day on a call that while, you know, we may not be able to hire everybody that we train, we just did locally here. I'm located in New Mexico, and we did a fiber optic certification training, I believe a year and a half ago, that was paid for with a state grant. There were 12 students in that class, and all 12 of them were hired immediately. Like, I don't think there was a single person that didn't have a job either waiting for them, or they were getting training based on the job that they were already in. So we know there's an incredible need for that, and we want to be a part of that. So part of the reason why I'm here is this bottom section on this slide is basically what my job is. I am in the process of building those connections and partnerships and support, not just at the state and local government and economic development organizations, which are the no-brainers, but also healthcare and food insecurity. That is part of our understanding that the best way to know a community is to understand what their holistic needs are. So you know, for example, I do run one of our local food distributions that has given me insight into everyone in our community. I live in a rural community. That's how I got into broadband in the first place, because I was looking for better connectivity so I could do my job better. And we run a local food distribution where I believe we have about 350 households, and we're serving 200 of those households a month. So there's a real connection between lack of connectivity, poverty, health and wellness. So we want to make sure that we're looking at this holistically. So I'm going very, very fast, and I was going to open it up to questions at the end, but if there's any questions about something specific here, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. So this slide is really not for you guys, because you all probably know a little bit about what the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund is, but I thought I'd throw it in there because at the bottom of this, you can see what our award actually looks like. We're in 7 states: Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas. Currently, Texas is our largest state. It's where we began. So a lot of our RDOF is built out in Texas. We've got several projects going in New Mexico, and I'll get into Arizona in a moment when I get to the next slide. We have $16 million to spend in the state of Arizona with our RDOF in 8 different counties. Even though I'm saying we have those 8 counties for RDOF, it's, you know, we're always open to other communities that may need help. And with BEAD grants coming up and other funding, we can usually find a way to partner using our own funds and, you know, come up with a solution. And I just wanted to call out Maricopa County is the largest community that we receive funding for, or I'm sorry, the largest funds that we receive for a community, and that's $4.45 million. So this is what our RDOF looks like. And this map goes back a little. I didn't have the ability to change it before this meeting, but like I said, a lot of Texas is done. So this map is about a year old, which is also why I changed out that number to say 500,000. That's just to be clear, that is our coverage area. We're not saying we have 500,000 customers, but that is our coverage area. So that is, like I said, mainly in Texas. But let me get a little more granular. And this is what we're going to be doing in Arizona. So I am actively getting out into the field just to make those connections, see what the challenges are in those communities, understand what those communities actually need versus what the FCC has obligated us to build, so that we can modify as much as we can to serve appropriately in these communities. And this is the actual breakdown of what our plans are for each community, how many locations we'll be serving, and what that support looks like. And just so you know, I'm going to give this entire presentation to Steve to disseminate to all of you. So you will have this if you have any questions and would like to, you know, follow up on any of this. So this is a little bit of a meaningless slide to me personally, only because I just started with the company and I don't know what the actual timelines, like when the clock started ticking. However, what I can tell you as part of a conversation I had yesterday is that, so if I go back to this slide right here, the plan is that Arizona's year is 2024. So we haven't started our build out, although our engineers have been, you know, working on these plans for a while. So we will be building this out. The plan is to have it done by the end of 2024. And that is entirely unofficial. That is just based on the conversation that I had yesterday, because they are actively building out our timelines for the next year. Okay. So this is where I said I'm not a technology person, but hopefully this is simple enough for someone like me to explain to more technologically savvy people than myself. So in areas where it makes sense, obviously, we're going to be dropping fiber. So those are areas that have enough density in a census block to build those fiber networks. For the ones that are close enough, but really there's not enough density to warrant the cost of fiber, we will be going with millimeter wave small cells and using the unlicensed spectrum. Then we get out into our point-to-point technology for those that have a little bit of density, but they're a little further apart. And then finally the point-to-point for really Spartan locations where things are pretty far away. So I want to get into how that's going to work a little bit based on our partnerships. So we have a lot of partners to make this work and good relationships that we're utilizing. But the one that I really wanted to highlight is with Tarana, because Tarana has been working on next generation fixed wireless equipment and systems, and they have come up with some really interesting new technologies. And specifically, one of the ones that's an interesting call out is the non-line of sight capabilities, because that's always been a challenge with many of these technologies in the past, that you have to have that direct line of sight, otherwise forget it, it's not going to work. We worked with them on this technology. We were one of their testers, and they used us as a case study. So that's what you see on the right-hand side here. And it's a really interesting, like I said, I'm not a technology person, but it is a really interesting video if you want to watch it when you get this document. There, I did include the link if you want to watch the full video of how this technology works. And then finally, my biggest ask of you guys here today is, who should I be partnering with? Are you a potential partner for us? How can we work together to ensure that those areas that are possibly unserved or underserved and may have fallen through the cracks of all these different programs and plannings and grants and things like that, we want to ensure that they all get covered. So I would love to connect with any and all of you and talk this through a little further. I think this is a really great forum, and I appreciate you so much, Steve, for asking me here today to talk this through. And so with that, I'd say, what questions do you have?
So Tamara,
got to be questions
Yes.
out there. Go ahead, Mylan.
what how far along are your engineers with the engineering solutions for Arizona?
That is a question that I need to ask, because I know that the plan is to be doing Arizona in 2024, but I don't know what the status is. I know that for pretty much all of our locations, they've done physical site visits. But beyond that, part of my job is to reach out to people like you all so that we can start having those conversations early before those builds get started.
So I reached out to Resound Networks after the RDOF awards, and Resound couldn't tell me anything at all. They didn't know anything. So I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're engaged, and I'm glad we have someone at least to talk to that's interested.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I was listening to everything that you were saying and thinking there's definitely some opportunity there. I don't want to step on Rory's toes at all, but if there are even opportunities for Triad and Resound to work together to help solve things.
Oh no, we don't step on toes. All of the 14 projects that we've done, we put out RFPs. Rory happened to win 8 of the 14. So
okay.
And Rory's done a great job. And Rory is best when it's not a normal or easy install. Rory is probably the best wireless engineer I've ever worked with. he can make it work. I don't care what it is or where it is. Rory has a way of making stuff work, no matter what. So if it's a hard install, Rory is the person to go to, because he can make anything work. So
Rory, how much did you pay Mylan to say that?
Yeah, no, I get it. The check is in the mail.
Rory's
No,
also
Rory's
also a pain in the ass, because Rory is extremely smart engineer wise, and he insists on running his own company. So it makes him tough to deal with sometimes, but he can make anything work anywhere. So if it's complex, I'll go to Rory every time, you know, if I have a choice. But all the stuff that I've done, they're all RFP driven. So he's just happens to have won 8 out of the 14. So you guys have been awarded, you have federal money to spend in Arizona. We want to make sure that it gets spent in Arizona. So
absolutely.
I'll send you an email this morning,
okay,
so that we can get together. I'd like to meet with your engineers, and I'm sure that Sandeep from the broadband office would probably like to talk to them too, so that we can talk about what the plan is, where you're planning on working, because we don't want to spend that $900 million we have in places that, well, we can't technically spend that 900 million in places that you guys are going to work and get stuff done. We just want to verify that it's actually going to get done, because some of the RDOF vendors haven't done anything in Arizona, and I don't think they're going to do anything. So those places are going to get left out.
And I will tell you, we've run into that in other markets as well, and we have tended to pick up those markets. So if someone comes to us and says, hey, someone defaulted on their RDOF, we're like, let's talk, let's see what we can do to get it done. So those are our favorite kind of projects, because we can come in and solve a problem.
Yeah, and as you learn very quickly, I speak very plainly and honestly, and I don't mince words very often. So it's just the way it is. It makes things a lot easier.
That's absolutely fine with me.
Good. So
yeah. So what you can help us with. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I said what you can help us with is, I know that we met with Sandeep before I got here. My superiors met with Sandeep a few months ago, and they would really like to get in front of him again and sit down, because we are ready to talk about that process. And we want to ensure, once again, exactly what you said, that we're hitting it in the right spots, and we're not, we're not overbuilding. We're not sort of doing something that doesn't need to be done. I think I was on another call yesterday for New Mexico, and they said, we want to make sure that we're not sending fiber to the rocks, because there are some areas where, the FCC might say this area needs fiber, and it's like, there's literally nothing there, So we want to make sure that we're following up with all the communities that we are responsible for, and making sure that it is an appropriate build.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Hi, Mylan. This is Karen.
I'll send you an email.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Karen.
Mylan, hi. I was just going to suggest, if we want to do another joint meeting with Sandeep and yourself and Resound, I think that would be really productive.
Yep. I'd love
Karen,
that.
You just want to remind people who you are.
Hi, I'm Karen Ziegler. I'm an independent consultant under contract with ACA to help them with their broadband efforts. And so, Tamara, I remember you were on the call last time, and we did talk about setting up another meeting, with Sandeep. And, I said you and one other RDOF provider are the only ones that have not defaulted in Arizona. So I think there is some great opportunities. I think if Crystal is still on our call, she's our GIS and data, person. And if we want to set up a meeting with Mylan and bring Crystal along too, and take a look at the maps. And like I said, I think we can have a really good discussion.
That would be fantastic. And the sooner the better, because we're in our planning stages for 2024 also. So we'd love to meet with you as quickly as possible.
Okay. Hey, Karen, since you're here and you have access to Sandeep's calendar, you want to set that up for us?
I can, and I'll tell you that we've got our major deadline to get the volume 2 initial proposal published by next Friday, so it would probably be the week after that.
Okay, all right. You just shoot me an invite. I'll be there. Okay.
I will, and Tamara, I have your email here on the slide, and so we'll take a look at the availability and send something out for that following week.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Thanks,
Perfect.
Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Tamara, can you stop sharing, please?
Absolutely. Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Tamara before we move on? Hearing none. Let's see, what do we got? So Mala, you're back. Glad to have you back. And Aaron, glad to have you back too. So you guys need to give us an update on what's happening with the state library and all the great projects you guys are doing.
Erin, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll just give a real quick update. The reason we were both gone last week was it was the Arizona Library Association conference, and total attendance for the conference was over 300, which is fantastic. Mala and I and a number of other state library staff presented on a wide range of topics that are very pertinent to this group. Namely, I'll let Mala talk about the telehealth one because that one was her project. But the one that I was most directly involved in was a state of digital equity in the state of Arizona presentation with a number of fine folks who are in this room, like Elena, and let's see who else is here. I can't see everybody on the screen, but in any case, it was a wonderfully attended program. I want to say there was like 50 people in that room, which was pretty amazing. And it really gave us the opportunity to, oh yes, and Cindy's here too. I didn't see you on the screen, Cindy. Yes, thank you. It gave us an opportunity to speak to, the stakeholders in the libraries that have been doing this work for so long, but maybe didn't have, the awareness of the bigger picture. And we were really happy to be able to share that from multiple perspectives. And so I hope that, fosters continuing conversation with the library world, which of course we will ensure that happens. So Mala, did you want to talk about the telehealth program?
Okay, I will. We had a presentation on the telehealth pilot projects. We have completed 3 pilots already, one at Aravaca, at Ajo, both of those in Pima County. We did one in Tuba City for the tribes. And that was an interesting day. That day it was a very windy day. We were running for rocks to hold our flyers down because it was outdoors. But we had a good attendance. More than 150 people attended for that small area. That was really good. And we demonstrated the health equipment, the kits that we have purchased for the libraries. We did a live demo with a nurse practitioner at the other end, and a nurse practitioner at our end as well, and help people understand what the equipment was and how they could do it, and how they could have a Zoom call with their health service provider. It was interesting to hear some of the folks say that they really were happy that we were doing something like this, because they had to drive almost an hour to Flagstaff or some other place if they had to meet their doctor or specialist, and which meant for those who were on hourly wage, they almost have to take a half a day off in order to do that. And at the same time, no childcare for them at home. So they had to pay for childcare so that someone takes care of their young ones while they take themselves or their elders to a doctor appointment. So on the whole, they found that this was a service that they would use. We're partnering with other organizations as well to make it happen, to continue this project further. Planning on having like a telehealth Tuesdays or something like that, so that every Tuesday or every Thursday, whatever day the library chooses, they would have a health-related programming happen at the library, and at the same time show them the equipment that is available so they could use it. Pima County has partnered with the American Heart Association and have got a couple of boxes or more of blood pressure kits, which they have distributed to their libraries, which can also be checked out by the by any patron for a length of time if they were on pre-op or post-op care, and they can do all this from their home if they have broadband connectivity at home, or else they can come to the library and do the same thing. So this is what we spoke about. We spoke about what we are also planning to do in the future, and how many more libraries we plan to connect to telehealth next year. The other presentation I did was on E-rate for tribal libraries. There's been a lot of focus and emphasis on E-rate for tribes. There's a pilot project going on right now. It's been extended again for next year. So the pilot project means that anyone who signs up for this will get one-on-one assistance from USAC, the administrative company that's running the E-rate program. And they will handhold them to all the stages of the E-rate program, which, you know, as all of us know, is complex, and every application runs through almost 3 fiscal years: the year that they are actually doing their RFP, the year that they do the application, and finally the year that they do the billing. So it is complicated, and sometimes we don't have people the same person staying right through one application even. So it is important for them to get that help, that one-on-one help, and that's what USAC is going to provide. Also, the new tribal order has a lot of benefits for them. For example, the school and the college library or university library, if it is serving the public free of cost, is eligible as a public library for E-rate purposes. Academic libraries otherwise are not eligible for E-rate. Also, the floor, that is the minimum that they can get for their internal connections, has been raised to $50,000, which is also good for them because so far they haven't utilized that amount to the internal connections amount is a 5-year cap, budget cap, and they can every 5 years it gets renewed. It's based on the number of students, or it's based on the square footage of the library that is used for public purpose, for public access. The other event that I attended, which is why I was not here, the other conference that I was at was Shelby. That's the Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition. They have their AnchorNet 11th AnchorNet conference in Washington, D.C. And it was interesting because they had White House staffers and as well as staffers from some of the Republican and Democratic senators to be a part of the conversation. And sometimes it was it was fiery in the room, to say the least, because of the confrontations. But it was interesting. We also had several panel sessions, the impact of E-rate on tribes, USF reforms. That was an interesting session, and we've talked about it quite a lot at AZBSN earlier. There was also a proposal by Jessica Rosenworcel, the chair, for a pilot program on cybersecurity that she proposed last July. It was a 3-year pilot for $200 million to support cybersecurity for schools and public libraries. And if adopted, they would open up a rulemaking process, which is an elaborate process that the FCC goes through for every change. But the funding would be separate from the E-rate funding. It is not a part of the E-rate funding. It's a part of the 3 proposals that the chairwoman put 4th for the Learn Without Limits program. The first one was the Wi-Fi access on school buses. The second phase was for funding Wi-Fi hotspots to be circulated. And this was through the E-rate funding program. And the cybersecurity pilot was the third of Learn Without Limits program. There were several others, other programs at Shelby, but I don't think we have the time to go through all of that. So back to you, Steve, unless there are any questions for me.
Oh, I have one more shout out. Sorry. Also this week, just highlighting Janet and the Arizona Telemedicine Program's policy summit that they hosted on Tuesday. Yes. I got to meet Tamara in person, which was wonderful. But that was a really well attended event as well. And we were there, the state library was there boothing for Connect Arizona Digital Navigators. So that was a great opportunity to get in front of that group as well. So sorry, I will stop talking now. Right. Back to you, Steve.
Well,
thanks.
That's a good segue, Erin. Go for it. Anything else you want to say while you're speaking?
No, back to you, Steve.
Okay. So Erin, you didn't want to add anything more? Any other updates?
No, I'm good. But Holly's on the call. I don't know if she's got anything.
No, I think you all have covered it. Thank you.
As always, you guys do amazing work. And Mala, like Mylan, is one of our heroes in the state that has brought millions of dollars to this state for E-rate funding. And so we are greatly appreciative of their work. So I want to jump back to Elena, and you want to give us a little update on the ACP and the information we sent out. But you want to talk about that a little bit. I told Elena that a lot of times people just don't read stuff we send. So I thought it would be good for her to talk about the latest with ACP.
Yeah, sure, Steve. Thanks. And yes, I will introduce myself before you tell me to. My name's Elena Lowry, and I am the Arizona Regional Director for a nonprofit organization called Common Sense Media. We're a child advocacy organization, and we've focused a lot of our work here in Arizona around the ACP. So we've had very close contact with folks on the Hill. And I just wanted everybody to be aware that a couple of things. There was a letter sent by U.S. Senator Rosen to the White House asking to extend the funding for ACP, and both Senators Kelly and Sinema were signers of that letter. It may have worked because they have allocated in a supplemental funding bill $6 billion to continue the ACP program. However, the chairwoman, the FCC chair, Jessica Rosenworcel, has already, and this is a fact, has already said that $7 billion is needed to prevent a lapse in of the ACP program before any long-term funding pathways like the Universal Service Fund are ready to absorb that program. So we estimated that the ACP will need short-term funding that lasts until June of 2025, because that would provide time for USF reform, court challenges, and the regulatory process to expand USF to include ACP. So we're working right now, as many of you are, on getting people signed up for the ACP. This is certainly a situation where the more people we sign up, the faster the money gets used. And so there's just a lot happening right now. But the good news is that $6 billion was included in the supplemental funding proposal. We don't know what's going to happen, but at least we know that there was discussion, there's awareness of the need. And if you have connections in Washington, if you have connections with your senators, your Republican friends, now would be a really good time to promote and push the need for that extra $1 billion. Certainly thanking those folks who helped to get the horse across the finish line, I guess you could say, so to speak. And I do have a copy of the letter. I have a copy of the statement from the White House. I have all of that. If anybody's interested, I can put it in the chat.
Any questions for Elena? Okay, give me 1 second here. Okay, Cindy, are you still here? Yep.
Yes,
Cindy,
I sure
there you are.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Cindy Hogan. I'm the chair of the Arizona Digital Inclusion Network, or ADIN. We're a coalition of digital inclusion practitioners and advocates from across the state working to advance digital equity and inclusion and close the digital divide in Arizona. And we focus on the elements of digital inclusion beyond broadband and the technology aspects, such as affordable devices, affordable internet service, digital skills, technical support, digital navigation, those sorts of things. I can put my email in the chat if you're interested in joining us for our meetings. We meet twice a month on Thursdays at noon. Let me find my chat here. Okay, and I just wanted to, this week or next week, we're going to be, well, no, prior to the initial proposal, the BEAD initial proposal volume 1, we're going to be weighing in on the community anchor institutions of Arizona information that's provided in that document. And I just wanted to raise awareness with this group. So Arizona, the broadband office has been working with their consultant. They've created a list of what they're considering community anchor institutions in Arizona. And I've downloaded that list, and I can put the link to that Excel spreadsheet so that everybody here, if you're interested in, if you're a community anchor potential institution, you can look at the list to see if you're on there, and if you think you should be on there, you can submit that to the broadband office. So I've looked over it, and I think there are a number of things missing, and I think it's really important that we all have a look at it. The funding for 1 gigabit service to community anchor institutions is part of the BEAD plan, and they if there's money left over after all the homes who are un and underserved are served, this money will go to supporting these institutions. But it's really important to me that we have a complete list, whether the funding shows up or not. I think it's really important to be stating who is eligible to receive this funding if that possibility happens. And I would just really like to see all of us who think we should have a shot at this on the list. We never know where the list is going to go, and so you can. I'm going to give you 2 email address or links. One is to, let me see, I'm getting in the chat. The first is just to the spreadsheet, what the list looks like, and you can search for organizations on that list. And then the second is where you can upload your suggestions to the state broadband office. So there we go.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy.
And that's all for me, Steve. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you. So John Kelly, I haven't seen you in a while. Is there anything legislative happening? Session's kind of over, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, it's over, but it's coming back, and I'm really glad.
It's like a bad penny.
So I'm John Kelly. I'm a principal in the lobbying firm Tri-Advocates, and we do all kinds of different work across all kinds of different policy areas, including broadband, including workforce development and education policy. So that's my introduction. I would say that the number one issue that this group can take back to their organizations is that the Arizona Commerce Authority, which is the loving home for our broadband program, is up for its sunset review at the legislature this year. And that means the legislature has to affirmatively vote to continue this unique public-private partnership opportunity. And you may have all kinds of different thoughts about the Arizona Commerce Authority and what it does and how it's doing. But the fact of the matter is that if the legislature does not continue it, then I would anticipate there would be a major disruption in our broadband program. They would have to find another home for it. It would not be good. So I know that a number of organizations and clients that I work with are making the preservation, if not some improvement in the Commerce Authority, a key part of their legislative priority. And I hope all of you will take that to heart as well.
John, do you perceive any potential objections in the legislature? I know it's hard to tell who does what, but
yeah, you're always going to have objections. You're always going to have issues. I don't think there's anything that I would call legitimate and real as far as that goes, but that's not necessarily the province of the legislature. So what I would say is the Arizona Auditor General, which is an arm of the legislature, did a performance audit of the Commerce Authority. You may have seen some headlines in the last couple of weeks about some of the work that's done to recruit companies to the state and monies that are expended around the Super Bowl or the Phoenix Open or any of those kinds of things. So those kinds of things tend to be a little controversial. But the fact of the matter is ACI administers some very key economic development programs for the state. And without it, you're going to have to start all over again. And especially as it relates to broadband, this is a very critical time for this program to get more mature rather than to get disrupted. So I just think it's a high priority for our community to make sure that the Commerce Authority gets continued.
So John, aside from the Commerce Authority and whatever issues there are with the Commerce Authority, are there any who are objecting to or concerned about the broadband office specifically?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that there is a general concern about federal spending and how much money is being dedicated to these kinds of things from certain quarters. So you're going to run into that in some respects. And I think to the extent that the broadband office has the ability to be transparent, accountable, and not create controversy is going to make it a lot easier for them. And I think they're well on the way in terms of making those kinds of improvements. So I'm not bringing this up to say that this is inevitable as a problem, but it's just if you want to know what to worry about, this is something that people can do something about. So if you're interacting with legislators, interacting with public policy, this should definitely be on your walking around card.
So John, should people be contacting the legislature regarding ACA generally or specifically broadband, if that's where their interest is?
I would say ACA generally, because that's where the broadband program sits. And one of the good reasons is because the broadband program is a key part of its development, and you don't want that disrupted.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for John? I know Heather, you follow a lot of that stuff too. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, just remember, the broadband office was codified last year and they did approve to actually keep and continue one. So I think what John outlined is if there is a problem with the ACA, that it will have to find a new home, but there will be a broadband office. So that's good news. But I agree with John. We wouldn't want the disruption at all. It's much better where it is.
Okay.
If I could jump in here real quick, this is PJ Way. Heather, I appreciate what you just said because I was thinking the same thing, that was codified already, so we'd have to find a new home. But obviously, the newest reports that have come out about the state budget shortfall could provide some impact. So I think if this is an effort that is in the interest of maintaining, that it is important probably to reach out as much as possible, simply because with budget shortfall, who knows what may be on the table for changes.
So John, is there any
exactly right, PJ? Because of that budget, current estimates are $400 million budget deficit in the current fiscal year. That's certainly digestible at the moment. We don't know what the economic trends are. The field is muddy. I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, is there been any talk at all about So if they did away with the Commerce Authority, about who would pick up that whole, not just the broadband office, but the whole role of economic development.
No, and because nobody's really, I think, has encountered the issue yet, the legislature is not in session, so we haven't sort of identified that this is going to be a major problem. But if, as you look at the fact that the calendar says that the agency has to be renewed, and you go to the legislature, anything you do at the legislature has to get 31 and 16 votes in support. And as we all know, that can sometimes be a challenge. So it's not an inherent problem with ACA. It's an inherent problem with the decision makers at the legislature, who have to hear from the community about what's important to them. And that's just a general statement. So if this group thinks the broadband office and what ACA does to support the broadband office is important, then it's important to be heard. And that's, I mean, all the lobbyists in the world marching down to the Capitol mean one thing, but it never as important as the grassroots, the kinds of companies that are involved in this, the community organizations, talking to Republicans and Democrats and everything in between. So that's just the nature of the beast.
Okay, thanks, John.
And I think one thing we can point to is the broadband office does a great job making sure there's not duplication of funding. And that is something our legislators would really be interested in hearing. Our office is doing a good job of making sure that any public monies are being used at the best that they can be without a duplication. So that's an ace in our pocket.
Good. Thank you, Heather. Okay, well, we're about out of time for today. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to share quickly?
Steve, Mark Goldstein,
Yeah,
only
Mark.
that the Tech Council Public Policy Guide has posted as a PDF on their site. It's 94 pages. It looks really good. I put the link in the chat earlier in the meeting. It's back there if you scroll back to it. And I did get the final edited version of our work, the broadband sections, as a Word document. It evolves a bit once I finally do submit it. So I will now be pulling out the 4 state and the federal broadband section and making a nice Word summary document probably by next week's meeting. But the full guide, the 94-page PDF, is on the website now.
Thank you, Mark. And so just a reminder that most of the stuff that we've talked about, any events coming up, anything related to a lot of the presentations, that I do have that information in the email that I send out with announcement of the meeting. So I know it's a lot of stuff, and I know that people don't read, but if you want to find the links to meetings and events and things coming up and deadlines and all that sort of stuff, you will find most of that in the email that I send out. Takes me a lot of time to do that, so you got to be reading it.
Steve, don't you also make, this is Kirk, don't you also make that available on the landing page, the AZBSN landing page on the site?
I do have well, I don't have all of those links to the meeting announcement page. I do have a lot of those links, but gotcha. I would strongly recommend that you review that email. I try to keep it as up to date as possible. So anytime anybody sends me information, I review the chat and anything else that I have from people to try to, excuse me, to share all of that information and make it easy to find and to find all those links.
And I apologize, I was in another meeting and I just got, John, is the ACA fundamentally at risk right now? I mean, I hate to, okay, Heather's just went, no, that's good.
Yeah, I don't want to overstate it because I think the ACA has a lot of support. What I'm just saying is that there is a affirmative decision the legislature has to make to continue the ACA. And given what we've seen with this legislature, particularly with directors' nominations, and how destructive some of those conversations can be, I think it's imperative that people like me are talking to people like you all to say, hey, on your little checklist of things to to talk to your legislators about. And if you're not talking to your legislators, why not? Then should be one of them.
Right. And Elena, yeah, I remember when it was first spun out from the Commerce Department, right? And a public-private partnership at that point in time. So that's why I get a little confused on, the original concept of it being a public-private partnership, and now it's being kind of treated like a Department of Commerce again. So just confusing for us legislative types.
It's probably confusing for them too, Kurt.
So
I can't help you with that, Kurt.
Looking at people in line here, myself and John and Mark in particular, who were involved with when it was the Department of Commerce, and we had conversations with them about broadband at that time. And then the Commerce Authority was created and spun off. And anyway, and so the other thing is, John, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the governor the chair of ACA board?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's an honorary
That's good or bad with today's legislature, but just a point of interest.
Well, things got a little gray for me when they pulled it back underneath the Office of Economic Opportunity and that whole thing, and then gave Sandra more responsibility, directly at the state. And Elena probably knows more about, those details back in the day than I do, and especially John does also. But it just seemed they started getting blurred on the public-private partnership entity, and then other functions within the state's purview that Sandra ends up with, responsible for. And when they moved workforce, when Roz got moved and the whole workforce crowd got moved, I got a little lost in it then. And I'm trying to re-engage the workforce groups for both, mission critical construction and data centers. And that's a little bit of a different kind of thing to navigate right now too.
Yeah, without getting too much inside baseball, Kirk, you make a great point, and I think the governor named Carlos Contreras to be the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity. Office of Economic Opportunity is a state agency, is not a public-private partnership,
right? And
they have to operate under state rules, procurement rules, et cetera. So. But they've been basically contracting for administrative support from ACA, and administrative support from ACA can be challenging because they've got a different set of rules. So that's getting worked out. But what I would tell you is since there was an announcement in the summer about a new Build It apprenticeship program around construction, particularly around manufacturing construction, there is a hot pursuit interest on the part of OEO in building and expanding apprenticeships. When I heard the discussion earlier today about registered telecommunications apprenticeships, I know I've heard that discussion in a number of different venues, that the workforce shortages, particularly in fiber optic techs and things like that. There's a huge interest in that on the part of OEO these days, and so there's a lot going on in that work.
Yeah, and trying to coordinate with them as part of the navigation issues I'm having, trying to figure out who's on first with a lot of that. And nice hat too, by the way, John. Nice hat.
So Kirk, just FYI, I have a call into several people trying to find out, because I actually wanted to do a program on workforce development because it keeps coming up again, and particularly workforce development as it relates to our interest, particularly in the digital inclusion space. And I'm trying to find, there are lots of organizations, as you know, who are involved in workforce development. What I'm trying to do, and maybe OEO, and I do have a call into them also, is the entity that can give us a picture of what the system looks like, because I know that each of the counties has workforce development boards, and they have to put together a plan that they then submit to the state. And then there's lots of there's the universities and all these different players out there. And so I was trying to find who or whose could give us a good overview of what that whole workforce system looks like.
You ever make spaghetti, Steve?
Well, I have to admit, it was a lot clearer when the godmother of workforce, aka Rosalind Boxer, was in charge of everything, and she could herd cats like nobody's business.
Yeah, she was great. She was great at saying no.
Roz and I were friends for 30 years. We've known Roz for years and years and years. Say we, my wife and I worked with Roz years and years ago. Anyway, I'm going to end the meeting. I'm going to stop recording. If you want
before you end,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Andy.
It's Andy Sinclair at GES. Let me do some checking around here. I'm sure I could find someone that can address workforce development that covers the whole umbrella of all the agencies statewide.
Great, Andy. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Just want to throw one thing in from, the digital inclusion workforce perspective. Part of the conversation should definitely be the iSchool at the U of A, who, trains our librarians in the state, and similar organizations that have, the digital literacy aspects in their professions. Not to discount the other parts, but that's definitely a huge part of the workforce that we're talking about when it comes to digital inclusion. And also just a little shout out to the leadership certificate that's available at ASU through the Marconi Society. The digital inclusion leadership certificate is an excellent program to look at for folks who are looking for that big 30,000 foot overview of what all the different parts that it entails.
So I don't have any sense of whether or not the local workforce investment boards, and they're probably called different things in different counties, have included a serious discussion about digital inclusion and so forth. And so that's a discussion. And I believe that that's going to be addressed also in the digital inclusion plan.
It sure will be.
With the state. But it would be helpful for us to have that discussion and kind of get a picture of who's who and who's doing what to the best that we can. But, there are so many different groups. Not that we have to get down to every library and everything, but where's the big picture that somebody is doing? And I know that the state does have a workforce plan that all of the counties have to submit their county plans. But beyond that, I'm not sure I understand where that is. OEO certainly is important, and I do have a call in to Andy Ridley about that also. Anyway, I'm going to stop recording if you guys want to hang on and